We are. Great. Welcome back to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. We are pivoting to our housing bill that came to us. No, our education bill. Right, Beth is here. Our education bill and the two pieces of workforce development, which I think are not in this committee, but we are getting because we're wanting to appreciate what's there. And we have two members. You have the vice chair of education and an education member here in this committee who are our liaisons to that committee. But it would be great for us to appreciate what's in the CTE sections, which I believe are sections 1 and 2. Is that right?
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. Yes, those are the sections that mention career and technical education, but they are not career and technical education sections.
Okay.
There is no career and technical education section of the bill. Would you like me to share my screen and we can look at the language? Okay.
I did print.
Yeah, they're right
1
here.
and 2.
Thank you.
So we are looking at H454 as it passed the House. And career and technical education comes up in, substantively, comes up in 2 sections of the bill. Section 1, which is the findings, intent, and plan section. And section 2, which is the amendments to the Commission on the Future of Public Education and the creation of that committee to make recommendations for school district boundaries. There's 3 or 4 mentions throughout the rest of the bill where you will see the term career and technical.
But before we, you are because of your afternoon committees, you're clear on Keisha and David, but have you also gotten to know Thomas and Rand? Great. So we don't need to do such. Good. Okay, great.
You will see the term career and technical education appear in a couple other places than what we're about to walk through. And it's in those instances, I don't think it would be worth our time to walk through them. It is just sweeping in career and technical education in the context of like, don't forget about us when we're looking at a statewide calendar or graduation requirements, etc. So section 1 is a findings, intent, and plan section. Subsection A is all findings. We're not going to look at those, but subsection B, starting on page 3, line 7, subdivision 2, is some intent language with the plan. It's essentially the plan of future action to move to a future state for education governance. And starting on line 8, subdivision A is all about what the General Assembly intends to do in the 2026 session. And then if you move to line 11, we've got 3 subdivisions about career and technical education. So next year, it is the intent of the General Assembly to enact updates regarding CTE governance, both at the local and statewide levels, that are reflective of the larger public education governance transformation to new larger school districts. So governance changes. Line 14, subdivision 3, create a coordinated and coherent statewide strategy for career and technical education that is responsive to students and the state's workforce needs, and that provides opportunities for more integration between CTE and traditional high school work. And then on line 18, enact student-centered updates to CTE funding within a foundation formula that does not create competition between sending schools and CTE programs for available funds. That's all intent language.
This is your favorite bill.
I don't have favorites.
It's your favorite from me.
I don't have favorites.
That's what your children say too.
Oh no, I have a favorite child. I only have one child.
This is fun.
So next year, what this is basically saying is that next year you all are going to be really busy looking at career and technical education. Well,
This governance up for next year.
governance and funding, fitting them into the larger education transformation picture. And that's it for section 1, all intent language. And then if we go to section 2, section 2 begins at the very bottom of page 4. It's an amendment to section 1 of the yield bill from last year. And section 1 created the Commission on the Future of Public Education. And so section 2 is an amendment to the charge of the commission. And it also creates, if we jump to page 18, the School District Boundary Subcommittee.
So page 18, sorry.
Yes. So we're still working within the Commission on the Future of Public Education.
An amendment to their work.
Correct. There's a lot of amendments before this, but I don't think they're necessarily applicable to this conversation. The School District Boundary Subcommittee, its overall charge is to make recommendations to you all for school district boundaries for next year, not more than 3 proposals. And what subsection J, starting on line 6 on page 18 does, is it gives the subcommittee a whole bunch of things, for lack of a better term, that it needs to consider in doing its work.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking who's on this subject.
Okay, the subcommittee, it is, well, avert your eyes while I scroll.
Is it forward or backward? I mean, is it,
It's up. So we're gonna be on page. Page 7.
so each of the subcommittees, I assume there are other subcommittees that are identified in this amendment.
No, so what this amendment does is it essentially strips the commission of all of its duties other than looking at state level governance. So what is the role of the agency? What is the role of the State Board of Education? What should be a local control decision? What should be a state decision? Strikes all of the rest of the commission's work, keeps the commission membership the same, but adds, starting on page 7, 9 non-voting members. And those 9 non-voting members make up the subcommittee to create school district boundaries.
We're looking at this in this committee because of its intersection with CTE.
And workforce, yeah. And it's basically teeing up all we want to do is make you aware that this is happening in your committees. You obviously wear 2 hats, David and Keisha. And that is all we're doing.
Like the 4 of us walked through this yesterday. But that's good. So we're going to the CTE stuff. So yeah.
Great, okay, I'm glad you did. Thanks, then I apologize. If Beth and I could have just had a simple
No, that's not.
seminar together. Maybe that's what I'll do.
I'll summarize
But-
it.
If you summarize, we have the lumber crowd are waiting to come, but
Well,
this
and
is
this-
great. So it's
It's just also likely to change. I mean,
that's okay, but it's good to know about.
yeah.
Well, and because we may have a hand in changing it, so it would be helpful for us to at least appreciate what came to us from the House. So the 9 members, I assume, are more representative of that there are at least 1 or 2 CTE people on this.
No. So there's 5 non-legislative members. 2 appointed by the speaker, 2 appointed by the committee on committees, 1 appointed by the governor. Those 5 non-legislative members need to be either a retired superintendent, a retired school business official, or a retired or former school board member. And each appointing authority has different parameters for who they can appoint. Then there are 4 legislative members, 2 from the House, 2 from the Senate. You'll see that there's no mention of career and technical education in the membership of the subcommittee.
I would point that out to David and Keisha that all 4 of you who have jurisdiction on this bill, that it would be great if particularly if we're going to look at districts that revolve and involve our CTE centers, that maybe a CTE person should be involved.
We haven't gotten there yet.
That's where my question was coming from.
Okay.
So
I-
that's where we're.
In the interest of time, I think it would be best if I just walk through the language, and I think that will answer all of your questions.
So I like to talk.
But I'd like to talk too.
Apologies.
So school district boundary subcommittee. Come up with boundary lines. On page 18, line 11, you'll notice that one of the many things they are supposed to be considering is the provision of career and technical education. Then, if you jump to line 15, we're getting at the specific directive. And the specific directive is the subcommittee shall recommend not more than 3 school district boundary proposals. And here we have language allowing them to consult with the Vermont Association of Career and Technical Education Directors, accounting for the fact that you may have no one on the subcommittee with direct CTE experience.
However, there's a may and not a shall.
Correct.
So that, again, committee, you might consider a shall. If this even stays in this bill.
And so what follows under subdivision A, starting at the bottom of page 18, is what these new school district boundaries, the requirements that they all need to meet.
Uh,
And then if you jump to page 19, line 5, they need to provide access to career and technical education for all eligible students.
Thank you.
And then on line 18, the subcommittee, still on page 19, the subcommittee may consider and make recommendations for the optimal location of schools, including CTE programs. And then if we jump to page 25, we're gonna just briefly, so that's all for sections 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Section 3, as I was preparing today, I realized that there was something that is relatively applicable to you all, and that is section 3 creates class size minimum standards for public schools. Career and technical education on page 25, line 15 is excluded from those class size minimums.
CTE is excluded.
Correct.
So if we are gonna follow any CTE threads in this committee, it's been really interesting to talk to Hannaford Technical Career Center. I'm gonna get the name wrong, but they have extra capacity while our other CTEs around them are saying they're busting at the seams. And because of the way lines are drawn and boundaries are set, they can't absorb that extra capacity. So I would hope we don't just have a conversation about like one person here or, exempt or not, but like, can we solve any problems for CTE? Like ignore the language on the page and just, can we solve real problems?
And there is a CTE organization, the Vermont Association of CTE Directors, VACTED, which has provided very good advice and counsel along the way. They're trusted. Beth, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is very helpful, and it tees us up for not only the 4 members who are going to have this conversation, but for also next year's work, if this all goes through. I assume aspects of it will. We have more work to do next year. Thank you.
Yes. And I'm just making a pitch that career and technical education, the provision of it and the laws that govern it are pretty distinct from our public education
They are.
system. So it's not always an apples to apples comparison as far as what works in one system and what doesn't. And so to the extent that I can provide any background, on the law, on anything, either in this seat or outside of it, please, I am available.
Thank you. We appreciate
Welcome.
that. And as we go into this more heavily, I think in the specific for next year, we will love that.
Yes.
What is your goal with?
My goal is that you guys go forth and represent our interests in your various committees. And I'm grateful. Thank you for giving us a notion of what's currently here, which is more modest and yet big impact. And
So
thank you.
the reason that I had emailed everyone to raise,
Come on, we're going to start in a minute.
The property category
categories.
is because they redefine what a rental is, what a vacant or non-vacant home are. And similar to this section, that conversation is 8th on the list for the 2 committees of jurisdiction. And I mean, let's take the CTE conversation. It's going to be hard to get these two committees of jurisdiction to have substantial time in committee to do anything to improve the CTE experience in our respective committees.
Next year, you mean, or this year?
Whatever we do to set up the future of education reform. So if you want to have if we can go forward and do whatever we want, but if you want to have a conversation about CTE, that's gonna happen right here.
Yes, that's the hope for next year. I'm not sure what for this year is appropriate, so we maybe have to figure that out. And I appreciate your categories and of the housing and its impact, but I also appreciate the fact that there are 4 of you embedded in those committees who I hope will bring some of those concerns back. I think Thomas has offered to bring it back from finance, and if you bring it back from education, I think if there are areas that we should be weighing in terms of how those are defined, I think we were happy to have that conversation. But I also know that there are 4 of you embedded in those committees for those conversations. I mean, if you, Thomas.
So great. And I think I saw something from Campaign for Vermont about a notion around centering some of this transformation plan around CTEs. Maybe it'd be useful to have them in to talk about that notion so that we could have that top of mind. But thank you for that presentation on the bill. But
No,
I don't know if Ed's going to work on any of this. But
which group?
Campaign for Vermont released some commentary about how this potential division is
The map drawing could be around the CTE.
could be somewhat oriented around CTE.
Yeah,
And it
but no,
might
I
be
know
useful
that-
for us to weigh in on to see if there's merit in having some say on this.
Happy to have Pat and
Ben King.
Ben. Oh, I know. They were champions for our establishing an ethics commission.
So I'm gonna work on how we decide to pull apart or not property tax category. I hope to do it with the members of the finance committee, but it is housing and economic policy.
And I think
Um,
we're happy to have, yeah. So I think what would be great is if we allow time to have a report and an update from you and have us weigh in as a committee through you and through Keisha and David, as it's appropriate in education too, because that's a joint jurisdiction bill between the two of you. Right?
Yes.
Right. So we can begin there. If we need to have further conversation, Keisha, I think we can do that. But I think it's got to start in the committees that it's.
I would just hope that you take the time to understand that section of the bill too.
I think we'd probably be happy to do that, but let's touch base and hear what finance has to say, and then we'll absolutely look at that. Thank you. I think we're gonna move to Austin. Would you do me a big favor? Would you kind of ask Bill and his crowd, our lumber team? And Jillian.
I was deputized, just tell you the comments.
Thank you, Austin, your usual typical.
Also need to watch.
Hello, how are you?
Find a seater. Two people come to see you, Madam Chair.
Right, and I think we have some testimony too. Welcome,
Thank you.
lumber people. Look at them,
Lumber people.
lumber people.
I've been called worse.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
And
Yeah.
thank you. It's good to see you. Hi, welcome. There are 2 chairs, one behind you. It's great to see you. We're all going to introduce each other so we all know who's in the room, and you have until 12 noon, Bill.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So.
So we're going to just begin by introducing ourselves to all of you, and then we'd love to have you guys introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Does that work?
Beautiful.
Because today is Building Supply Day at the State House. And building supply is a key piece of all.
Have everything you want. Madam
Right.
Chair.
So, Tom,
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Chittenden. I represent the southeast quadrants of Chittenden County. We did.
Oh, right, I forgot that's the cue you're doing now. So Keisha Rumpensdale, same district, and I have a request into natural resources to exempt sawmills from Act 250 jurisdiction, just so you know.
Oh, good, thank you.
I'm Allison Clarkson, and I represent the Windsor County District.
I'm Randy Brock, I represent Franklin County and the northern part of Grand Isle County.
Good morning, Dave Weeks, serving Rutland.
Right, and it would be wonderful, Bill, if you'd have everybody introduce
Absolutely,
them.
Madam Chair, and I won't be here too long because you can talk to me any day. But go around the room real quickly. Our members of our association, you can see where they're located in the state. Jeff, want to start with you?
Jeff Hoffman Jr. I run the Curtis Lumber Wilson branch.
Lance Allen, director on the VRLDA board and also work at RK Miles. Tim Combs, Goodrow Lumber, East Middlebury. Past owner of Goodrow Lumber, just recently sold, and ex officio of VRLDA.
My name is Francis Palczewski. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Northeastern Retail Lumber Association. These are our Vermont guys, the local affiliates. We represent more than 1,000 businesses just like them all throughout the Northeast. The local guys, not Lowe's and Home Depot, the independents, small family-owned business.
Claudia Holman, I am the Chief Financial Officer of Bethel Mills, and I am the current president of the Vermont Retail Lumber Dealers Association.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you, Jeremy, for giving it.
I say this all the time. Claudia is the first woman president of our board, and we've had a board since 1940 something. So
That is really.
Yeah. she's a woman for the job. My name's Jeremy Baker. I work for RK Miles as the safety and fleet director for the entire company. We have 7 locations throughout Vermont and 2 in Massachusetts, and we employ about 300 people total, which of course not are all in Vermont, but some in Massachusetts.
Hi, I'm Katie Gallagher. I actually work for a manufacturing company called Huber Engineered Woods. A lot of the folks in this room, all the folks in this room are retail partners. So I'm on the VRLDA board as an associate director supporting their efforts.
I'm Ed Druk, and I own 2 stores in Windham County, Newfane and Wilmington, and I'm on the VRLDA board too.
Brian Moses, my family owns Britton Lumber Company in Fairleigh, Vermont. We're a wholesale.
And Britain is also in Woodstock / Heartland.
That is best part of the Bethel.
That's part, now that's right now.
My Britton and their Britton.
That's right, that's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We're a wholesaler, trucking company, building material supplier. My brother and I are next generation owners.
Great. We're delighted. This is wonderful. We have forests represented here as well, the source of our timber and lumber. And great. And I just have to point out that Ed is also Emily Long's brother.
Yes.
Very important. Okay.
So I'm going to jump out of this chair just as quick as I can because I work for them and you want to hear from them, not me. We can talk about how we can help you later on in the process here, but let's just, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
And Bill, were you with us for our joint hearing on Vermont, Canada trade tariff?
I watched you on that. Yes.
Okay.
You do have some tariff impacts and.
I assume. That's a given at this moment.
Yeah.
Hello again.
Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. We are very appreciative of this opportunity. We've got handouts for you. I am not going to go over those unless you want specific questions answered. Our testimony has been given to you. Our goal today, one of many, is by the time that we leave, we want you to understand that we care tremendously about the state and about the future of the workforce. We've been doing work in workforce development for the past 4 years at an event called Bright Futures. We have over 200 students from CTEs around the state. This year, Governor Scott was at the occasion at the event to give a very compassionate speech and basically plea to these youngsters to not only consider the trades, but to consider staying in Vermont to fill that gap of trade, the trade industry, because the average age of the current tradesperson is 56 or 54 or 50 something. So they're aging out and we need people to replace them. We also recognize that there's a shortage of affordable homes in the state. The governor identified that I think he stated at that meeting that overall there were 24,000 that need to be built, and the schedule was 2 to 3 or 3 to 4,000 per year that would be ideal to try and catch up We understand that affordable housing means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and that the definition of that continues to change, especially with what's going on in Washington. So I have experts here with me. I'm just going to moderate, but we want to answer any question and every question you have. Hopefully we can do that. If not, I brought my little notebook, and if I need to, I'll open my notebook and I'll take a note of a question we can't answer.
So why don't you actually fill us in on today's tariff situation, because it changes so
Right.
quickly, and
So-
particularly with our biggest trade partner and the partner we're most dependent on in this room,
Yes.
Canada.
So we have an exemption from Canadian softwood lumber, which has been very helpful. We don't know how long that'll last. We don't know how long any of this will last. So we
We
have
have
to
an
be,
exemption for 90 days. For how
do you
long?
know how long it is?
The exemption for lumber products is worldwide in the last executive order. There's no time limit on it, so unless they issue a new executive order overturning that, lumber products are exempted.
All lumber products are just softwood.
All lumber products.
So you just said softwood.
I know. It's what I'm most familiar with is the Canadian softwood market, because that's what we rely on the most in the Northeast to build the homes because of the structural integrity of the wood that's grown in Canada. But we don't have exemptions for things like steel, aluminum, and other products that are manufactured.
Critically important for us.
Yes, yes.
All the.
So it's still going to impact not only our businesses, but our customers, which will impact affordable housing.
So you just mentioned the integrity of the softwoods from Canada. Surely our Vermont softwoods are just as good.
I'd like to think so. It would be nice if we were able to harvest more timber in the Green Mountain National Forest.
So that is a key issue that we could address. Are you going to be addressing that issue today?
I wasn't planning on it, but
I think it's something we need to hear.
I
I
don't.
know enough to be dangerous is the problem.
Sure.
So I know that this is.
I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge because
So would you
I
feel,
spend a lot of time in the Green Mountain National Forest because I'm an outdoors, and I see a lot of, quite frankly, I see a lot of wasted resources because the National Forest Service, which has the office in the Finger Lakes for both Vermont and the New York pieces of the National Forest, they do not actively manage the forests in a sustainable manner. I believe we could be more active. We could log more locally, which would provide a lot more softwood lumber as well as hardwood lumber for our industry. But until that happens, we are not purchasing lumber that started in Vermont and was milled in Vermont.
thank you. Everyone, we all need to be reminded that current use, any land in current use is required to be managed.
Which is private land.
Correct. But there's much more private land owned than there is national forest.
Yes, but the National Forest is hundreds of thousands of acres.
It is. So as a policy committee.
Yeah.
We need to appreciate the opportunity here for us, and it's nationally owned, so
That's right.
is one of our challenges.
Yes.
But one thing we just need to keep an eye on is how we could align.
Yeah.
Our current use.
Yes. Yeah, you're
standards
required to have
for
a management
harvesting.
plan. Yes.
Exactly. So this is why I'm bringing this up, is
Yeah.
that we can work with our federal partners. Actually, I'm not sure I want to open up national forest land for everything, but
Yeah.
certainly we could align
It's a look, don't
management
see
needs
forest.
with our state.
Yeah. And right now, I'm speaking on behalf of myself as an individual, not the VRLDA, but it's a very near and dear topic.
Yeah.
I went to school at Paul Smith College to become a forester.
Love Paulson.
So,
Right.
I just look at it's like it's an even aged, mature forest that is being underutilized.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want us to leave that conversation there, because we're the Economic Development Committee, and we've lost some rural voices in the legislature who were really passionate voices for forestry and wood products.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Catherine Sims, for example, and leaders from the Rural Caucus. And first of all, Madam Chair, I think it would be fair to say, maybe someone can correct me, those forest lands are the biggest, that's the most land owned by one entity, right? You're
Yes,
not
single
going to
largest
be able
land.
to,
Correct.
yeah, you're
And it's the
having
federal
to
government.
negotiate with 100 private landowners is extremely different than working with.
We don't
one.
negotiate with 100 private, we negotiate, we have a program called Current Use, which
Right.
requires management of
Right.
a forest.
But
Right.
you still have to look at all of those management plans. That's a different thing. That's
They're reviewed.
negotiating with each person who owns land in current use. And two, we are looking at proposals in the legislature that would move us towards 30 or 50% of our land being in some form of protection. And I think our job is to make sure we look at that with an eye toward working lands, not untouched lands, because that's a huge part of our.
That's what I believe I'm getting at.
You could be
So, I
current
would give it to
use
Brian.
and also be a conserved
Right.
parcel of land,
Yes.
so it can serve a dual
Exactly.
purpose.
But I don't know that we could say federal lands and federal forests or state forests should remain untouched in that context. That would be very hard to say.
The state
I'm
forest,
not saying that. In
I
fact,
believe
I'm
the state
driving at
forest-
our aligning a harvesting
yes,
need.
the state forest, I believe, is being managed.
It is being very well managed
Yes,
and managed to be harvested.
multi-use too.
Exactly. It is the key resource in this state that is not being harvested or managed is our national forest. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Thank you for that testimony.
So can I just,
Hey, go ahead.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but what we came in here today, because we are building material
Yes.
retailers, we didn't really come here to talk about the forest, which I know is a huge important thing. We came here to talk more about the CTE programs.
Right.
And
Let's dive into
I've got handouts here that I'd like to have
Right.
passed around the room.
We are,
And
I just want you to know that we are advocates very much for workforce, very much for CTE, but also this is a key piece of housing, our materials, our labor.
Sure.
And so we're just, particularly given our housing crisis, we are.
And we feel that
particularly
goes
sensitive.
hand in hand with affordable housing, with workforce development and keeping our young students in the state of Vermont. Because it does go
Right.
hand in hand with each other. That in order for them to stay here and become part of our industry, we need affordable housing for them to live in.
We are clear
So,
on that.
Um,
Yeah, thanks.
we wanted to present these pieces, and I got this from the Hannaford Career Center.
Yeah.
I worked with them personally. I'm on their board for the construction tech class down there. And, I just wanted to point out a few of the things is the budget on the career centers are minuscule compared to the overall picture. And one of the things is in Addison County alone, we serve in the career center 1 out of 3 students, and we only get $5.7 million to do that out of 123 million. So it's for,
We appreciate that. And it's one of the pieces that is being rethought as we re-envision how we deliver education in the state. I've been working with Scott Farr and many of us have been working with our CTE centers. But Scott Farr, who's, runs VAP-DED, we are very clear and have been for a number of years on the financial challenge of both and pitting the competition between CTE and high school. That is one of the things we have to solve in going forward in our transition of education and trying to make it a seamless experience so that people can easily access career and technical education along with and mainline.
and the boundaries and the demographics have to be looked at as well.
Yeah, the governance and the financing are 2 key pieces that are going to be addressed and hopefully resolved in the course of the next year or 2.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Jeremy, anything else?
Yeah.
So
No,
speak to the forestry if you don't
Great.
mind.
What
Professor
is
Mills-
your next?
Yeah.
No, I don't need to sit. I'm very comfortable here, but thank you. Bethel Mills has thousands of acres of managed forest lands. We use Fountain Forestry. It is a wonderful program. But CTE actually ties very well into it. Brian actually has a good feel of the differences between what comes out of a forest like Bethel Mills and its uses in the housing market. versus what we're purchasing on the outside. Definitely we can, we have many people who would be very helpful, I think, to you if that's a place that you're looking to focus on, because it's very different. That end use is different, and how we manage what we have is very different. And it seems like we have a great deal in the private area, but I'm not quite sure how the supply and demand works there. But to speak to CTE, one of the schools that came was actually the whole program was forestry. So we are seeing these young people really taking, having a passion for it. And so as you're developing this kind of concept that you're talking about, which is to perhaps look at the forestry piece, funding for that vein. And again, it's not just managing, right? Because that's what Fountain says. So Fountain's Forestry manages our plan, but it's actually, how do you get the lumber? Well, like, how do you know? And the people that are hands-on in that, sawmill and that type of thing, safety, how do you run it? All of that comes now into our young people, which offers, well, one of the things that we got in our survey, we had 140 students respond, we had 200 there. And one of the things they said is that we found out about new opportunities. And that's a new opportunity. So what I'm suggesting is simply that if you're looking at this forestry piece and how that might shelter us from some of the tariffs, which I believe is where you're going with it, it could also help the landowners, right, in some ways, because it makes their product somewhat more valuable. Again, I'm not educated enough to speak to the use of the product on Bethel Mills land. I know that we do harvest it. It is not, it's not huge what comes out of there, and nor do I actually know the uses. But again, dovetailing into CTE with if we're going to do that, how do we help these kids to get into a field that could become, if you're now talking about national forest land, which I don't know how that happens, but you do. So I know, and again, I did this national, so I'm not sure about that. Not my forte.
We have a state rep here who actually works for the national.
Yeah, see, that's great.
And does it and manages in Rutland.
Yeah,
so
that's new. That's wonderful. I thought they were hands off. I'm just not schooled in it.
They are.
But my point being that's a whole new vein of jobs that opens up, that we can, that we'd like to help you find the kids that can do it.
And our forestry programs, our serve and learn programs, our wonderful work with our national park. We have been working and investing in our working lands grants, really investing in the forest products industry. And I think it was underappreciated for a long time and taken for granted. And I think we're now reinvesting in it and reappreciating it in ways I don't think 25 years ago we did.
So to speak to that, I think many people that come into forestry are college graduates. They have degrees from a college, which is Jeremy. My husband actually has a forestry degree. And so my hope would be that if that is a place we're looking to develop, that what's done within the high school allows some certification, perhaps not the college level, but something that helps them to achieve a level of success here in the state.
And we, as you probably know, because it's close by, VTC has some of those certifications, as does CCB. So
I have a thing to add about if you want to become a logger, if you're a young person that wants to enter the trades, logging is a trade. One of the things I see from my end of it as a company that purchases logs is that the average age of a logging outfit is same as the average age of an electrician, plumber. It's 50s, 60s. It's an aging business owner workforce. To get into buying and get into becoming a new logger, call it in your 20s, fresh out of Paulson, that's if you want to start your own logging outfit, you need $1 million.
Right. I was going to say that.
And that person doesn't have the business wherewithal or necessarily financing know-how to go out and purchase that equipment. And so that's something, I don't know if the SBA can be involved in, or if that could be something that's helping to support the actual the necessary equipment for them to work in the woods.
Right,
And that could be applied to
depreciation
electricians, that could be
bonus.
applied to plumbers, that could be applied to HVAC technicians.
Yeah, because you're talking about a skid, you're talking about a specialty equipment and that also takes a lot to run it. And it's going into areas, it's a whole new ballpark. So any type of investment, depreciation to that specific industry that would give them the opportunity to purchase it, and kind of almost if you're looking at bonus depreciation, kind of almost help with that financing. If that's where you're going.
Well, it's that's an interesting idea that I think would be, and I'm surprised that doesn't exist, that equipment can't be leased without having to be purchased. It can, I believe. And so the
Similar to
people
the vehicle.
going in can lease some of this very expensive equipment before having to actually purchase it. So they can at least get a start in
Yeah.
this.
What we're seeing is regionally in New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York, Adirondacks, is large companies are actually more vertically integrating, actually going out and purchasing the equipment themselves and hiring the crew, and hiring the tradesperson. That's what's happening. I would call it consolidation. More than anything, we're seeing that with, again, plumbers, HVACs, electricians.
Everybody's coming in.
That's what's going on right now.
Which has pluses and minuses, because some of them offer benefits that individual doesn't
Large
necessarily.
companies are both good and bad.
Yeah, well, there. Claudia, so anybody else want to add on the CTE piece?
So I do want to
Because
speak again, if you're focusing on the tariffs and alleviating, let's talk a little bit about hardware. Most of us sell hardware. Bethel Mills has several ACE co-op stores. What is going to happen with those commodities that are coming in from China? I think we got a number of, ACE told us that 34% of the products in our hardware stores are from China, so they'll be being the price will come up. So let's talk about CTE again. The best way to save money is to be educated when you are buying a product. And when we have educated people in hardware, in building, in plumbing, they can come into a store like mine and act as a retail salesperson so that when you come in, you're not buying stuff you don't need. You're getting educated to something that you do need. And although the price tag itself is a bit higher, right, because of the tariff, you're not coming back and saying, oh, I bought this, it doesn't work for me. So that's another issue. CTEs are showing these kids what they need. And we need them in our business to help us sell products that are, although higher priced, windows that work, zip, so zip system, that's natural resource, that's green. These kids are getting that type of education and they should be getting it sooner. It shouldn't wait till junior year.
I think this committee agrees completely. We have worked very hard to get CTE introduced earlier and to get them engaged so that they can take more classes in 9th and 10th grade so that we affect the dropout rate, which affects our dependency on the state.
So how can we help move that forward? As an
Your presence
association.
here, your presence here is very helpful.
Okay.
Committee, do you have some questions at this point? All of us represent forests and are engaged with the working lands. I mean, this is all ties into a lot of the work we've been doing. And I think the equipment question is an interesting one as we try to encourage young entrepreneurs into the forest products industry. Randy.
An overall question, what would you like us to do? What would you like us to not do?
Sure. Do you want to take that, Claudia, or do you want me to go with it?
I'll send it first,
Okay,
and then
go
everybody else can chime in. We would like you to, two things, consider, as I said, how whatever plan you're moving forward with may be how a CTE program or education, and it doesn't have to be towards just young people. It could be older people coming back in, how that can be dovetailed from what you're trying to do. And then the other side of it is that we are here not to necessarily ask, we're here to say, what can we do to help promote education and keeping our kids here within the state. So that's my, I hit it. Now it's Jeremy's turn.
Sure. I would just echo those sentiments and say, this is like an introductory meeting for us with all of you. We want you to know who we are. We want you to know that we care. We feel like we're the fabric that ties the communities of the state together. You know, each locally owned, family owned lumberyard we're invested in the communities we're in. And we just want to extend the olive branch to say, we're here to help in any way that we can further your causes that we can find common ground on.
So I talk about how we're competitors, like you made a good.
Oh, yeah. So
Very good point.
yeah, so we're all competitors. I mean, like fiercely competitive. Bethel Mills and RK Miles are constantly competing after and going after the same exact customers.
It's not interesting because in my neck of the woods, Bethel Mills rules.
I had to get a few.
Did you pay her to say that?
No, the village coming to you.
I'm done. This meeting is over. No, but honestly, the fact that we're all so competitive outside of our association and we're able to come together as an association and understand the importance. I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, if we don't hang together, then surely we'll hang separately or something along those lines. I'm totally getting it wrong, but I think you get the point. We work together so passionately for the future of the state. We started Bright Futures just out of a concept that Claudia had and she's been moving it forward to the point where we're either going to have to start turning away people or finding a larger venue to host it in. But having said that, we started it with the idea of.
Why don't you fill us all in on Bright Futures?
Okay, that's you, Claudia. It's
Bill,
her vision, so I want her to be able to, explain it.
You want to pull up to the table? Well,
Let's see to the table you want it, but.
yeah, no, I mean. Oh, I should look at the edging. So about 4 years ago, I've been on with the VRLDA for at least 15 years now. And I've always been in the education, on the education committee. I began to visit the schools. And when I would go to the schools, the kids really were interested in what we had to say. And they also appreciated the visit. And so it came to the understanding that they had no idea what we did all day in a lumberyard. I didn't think you're a hardware store. You come in, you buy nuts and bolts, maybe some plumbing, and you go. And we offer so much more. We have really, it's amazing, but we have design and some of the best products, green products, just stuff that you could be really proud of selling and representing that help you in your home ownership, which is really the best thing. And that's what everybody wants, to own a home, right? American dream, own a home. And so I had an idea about Bright Futures. This man said, okay, let's do it. He was the president at the time. Everybody got behind it. And we began to bring trade school students to Vermont Tech or Vermont State College now. And we showed them a day in the life. And that we talked at them for the whole day,
Yeah.
which didn't
They were
work as well.
sedentary, they sat, they were a captive audience.
But it worked well enough that we decided to try it again with a lot of tweaking. What we began to do now is have venues. And so our great associates come, he runs a boom truck. She brings her whole crew, including the owner of her business, and they have a hands-on with their products. She represents a company that sells a product called Zip, and it's
widely used among the building trades.
and it's cutting edge. It's still cutting. It's still a great product. And so all of these companies come and we send them around, the kids 15 each in a group, 15 to 20 with 3 mentors. So some of us will go with them and we say, hey, if you have a question, this is how I got into this industry. If I can help you in any way with something, just let me know. So we bond with them. We take them to these different venues. And as I said, this year, the governor came and we had these kids answer and the survey, and they loved that he was there. They said that they knew people cared.
A lot of the answers said that reflected that same sentiment. And I think that's important and shouldn't get lost in the message that if we give young people hope and they understand that we care, I think they're more likely to invest their future here in Vermont rather than seek a future outside of the state. And that's what we need, because the old adage, as I'm sure you know, is our biggest export is our youth. And we need to stop that. We only have 84,000 students in the state of Vermont. You think about that over the.
But we're hopefully all lifelong learners.
Right.
We're all.
Right, but out of those 84,000 students, how many are actually going to stay in
Okay.
Vermont?
Surprising numbers stay.
So
I'm one for one.
my daughter Jillian, I believe, I met you at the Harvest Fair. I'm sure I look different at the Harvest Fair. But my daughter Jillian just graduated from college. She's in Chicago and she is going to come back. She just came with us to DC for Lobby because there are things that she is questioning when it comes to coming back at her age to Vermont. With that said, I want to segue into something very important. We've been talking about it all day. How can you help? We have a school in Rutland, a tech center in Rutland, that had too many students applying. So let's use your forestry program as an example in CTE. That's not going to be offered in every tech center, right? So if you have kids that are in Rutland that want to then go to, say, Middlebury because it offers them, there's something that prevents them. I'm going to let Tim speak to that.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Randy, the biggest thing is boundaries, the demographics. My understanding is that hasn't been looked at and changed in over 40 years. And that's one of the first things that I think needs to change is just recently, our career center in Hannaford has a low number of students. So we pay a high dollar to teach these younger students and don't get the repeat business, if you will, like what you're talking about. So Rutland had turned away 100 kids this year for different programs.
But they're so oversubscribed.
They're oversubscribed.
Stafford.
Yeah.
So, which is great for them. However, we asked, can we take those kids to Middlebury? And it was a big no because of the demographic. So those students did
Not transportation. I mean, what was the demographic?
Well, there's a boundary.
There's
Well,
the
the
boundaries,
boundaries.
Addison County versus Rutland County. So that's one of the big things that we need to change. We can't turn students away that want to be a part of the CTE program, especially 100. And we could have easily brought them to Middlebury and taught every one of those students in Middlebury because we have the deficiency there. So I talked directly with our superintendent 2 days ago. So that was one of the big things that she had brought up to me is we need to change the boundaries and the demographics definitely have to be changed. And we need to change it sooner than later.
Is there
I don't think-
something we could do in the interim as a transition to what we hopefully will be fixed in the next year or two?
Boy, we do hope so.
No, but I mean, I think we need,
I would say Bill might be able to answer that better.
I'm not sure. Well, for example, there's some administrative rule somewhere, maybe in AOE, that says you cannot bus kids to a different county even though it's 15 miles away or wherever it is. So let's get into those programs and say what we can fix there, whether it's administratively or in this building, and fix it now.
I'm gonna be impertinent and say I think CTE has been a victim of the school choice debate.
in large ways, it has.
Yeah.
And if we recenter it on economic development because it's our jurisdiction, we might be able to change that dynamic.
I think that that's very true. And I'm just thinking that I'm just wondering what we can accomplish actually.
Well, and other things like I said, those from discussions last
I agree.
session in education, that we need to get to these kids earlier. By the time they get to be a junior in high school, often it's too late.
Yeah.
For kids that want to become interested in middle school and been able to take some courses in early in high school, they just say, sorry, we can't do it. There's a rule that said you can't do it. There's not some immutable truth
Yeah.
that says you can't do this. So let's find those things, fix them. And if it's legislatively, if you need to put session law in somewhere that says, age of education shall no longer bar the transfer of oversubscribed students to another place just because it's on the other side of a county line.
Right. Are you aware of other CTEs that are undersubscribed that have had the same problem?
I'm not personally, I do know that, I think Essex has maybe have the same problem as Stafford. There's
Yeah,
certain programs that.
Essex is,
They're big.
River Valley is too. I mean, they're a bunch.
Yes, I think that there's several of them that are, but then there's others that have smaller, so there's gotta be that way that we can figure it out how to bus these kids to one of these
Yeah.
under student,
The emphasis should be on what
the
the
student.
kids
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
If they want that type of education,
We need to.
we shouldn't be in their way.
Them to get it.
Yeah.
We agree.
We can give you that data too.
But they are turning kids away from these programs all the time. I mean,
And
River
down in the neck
Valley,
of the woods. So Ed is Wyndham County.
right, River Valley definitely is turning kids
I
away.
know, they're
You know,
oversubscribed.
And so if we're going to hit these kids earlier, we gotta have more of these.
Yeah, we can't overpromise and underdeliver.
Right.
Absolutely. I agree.
And the financing end of it really needs to be looked at as well. That's a huge part of the problem, right? We know that.
They fight for,
Yes.
Well, you
They
fight
fight
for
for
the dollars. The dollars right now, when they leave a high school, like Mount Aid, let's say, let's use them as an example. They come to Hannaford Career Center. Well, Mount Aid has to write the check out for them to go down to the Hannaford Career Center. So that takes from Mount Aid's budget. So.
they make it a competition, just like all of you are
we
in
can't
competition.
do
They
that.
make it a super competition.
We know that these kids learn better in a CTE program than they do in classrooms and books. And we've got to get away from that dollar figure holding them back from sending them to these CTE programs because it's not doing the kids any good at all. Once we get them early and they actually start feeling better about themselves because they're going and they're working and they're seeing what they're manufacturing in these construction tech, the culinary, all of it.
Yeah.
It
They're developing
boosts
more
their
skills,
spirit.
more confidence.
We are
Absolutely.
hit. We are hit. I had long thought we could have done this much earlier and we've been working towards that goal.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Talk to us a little about sawmills. So we have seen the radical reduction of sawmills in this state. And just as a protection from possible tariffs in the next 4 years, if we go back and forth daily on this or weekly or at the whim of one person. How do we is it economically feasible to bring more back online? How do we bring more back online? It's part of the forest products trajectory. And I know we send a lot of lumber to Canada to be milled.
Mhm.
What,
I think
weigh in with us, because we get a lot of concern and angst about this. So
Yeah,
I can answer that. The Northeast, as much as we would love to be able to take all the wood from the Northeast and utilize it here, there's just not enough lumber here to supply us. Now, and I know that, the president thinks that we can supply our own lumber within our own states. That's not possible. Number one, we're not going to take the southern yellow pine that comes from the south.
Did you mean the president of the United States?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Which
So,
president?
well, the president, he feels
We
like,
didn't
okay,
think
we
you
can.
meant Claudia.
Sorry, Claudia, I'm not throwing you under the bus.
Yeah,
So
think
I
from
just want to
Kate's side,
state
we're like,
that there's not enough lumber in this area to supply our.
It's more of a subsidy.
Yeah,
If you.
and the other thing is the quality.
Right.
The quality of our timber here is not like coming from British Columbia. Now, obviously, part of that's shrinking because Canada is not allowing as much harvesting of their forest up there either. But I personally buy a lot of Europe. Austria is a big supplier for my lumber today, and Germany. Their quality is way better than coming even from British Columbia, where we used to buy rail cars from West Fraser.
So can you tell us why that lumber is better quality?
The mills are.
Is it milled better? Or
It's
is
mi-
the
it's milled
actual
better.
wood better?
No, it's milled better and
Grown better.
it's grown better and it's clear. It's beautiful stuff. I sent pictures to Francis the other day and he goes, my God, I wish that you had that Goodrow lumber was in my area because I buy lumber from you. It took me 45 minutes to pick out some of the boards that I had.
Mhm.
So again, back to kind of the president of the United States, his thoughts are, well, we have lots of lumber here. Well, yeah, we do, but we're not going to utilize it the same way. Down south, they build with southern yellow pine.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We don't build with southern yellow pine up here.
Doesn't have the structural integrity.
It twists and turns. And it's not a quality wood. It's harder to nail into. So we like to use spruce in this area. Now out west, they use fir. And it's fine because you're not trucking it as far. If we get fir from Washington to here, it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Same thing with cedar. because of all the trucking fees.
And if ours was managed better, it'd grow better.
It would, but we just don't, it's just not happening right now. So,
So that Austria and Germany do more plantation growth than they do.
yes,
Okay.
it's managed way better and the quality of the mills are superior over what we have here and in BC.
So how can we learn from that too? I mean, how do we have people going to Austria and Germany and learning how we could conceivably do more plantation growth? We certainly have the land for some of that.
That'd be out of our,
Yeah,
I mean, that's not anything that we deal with because we are consuming or
Yeah, but
purchasing.
the people who control it also can, you know, it
We can
doesn't strike
influence,
me that we
sure, we can influence, but we're purchasing lumber that's already been manufactured. We're not growing the timber, we're not harvesting the timber, we're not transporting the timber to locations.
But a fully integrated company might be.
And we're not even purchasing lumber from the local mills. It's the end user that's actually purchasing, like A. Johnson Lumber and Lathrop's, who just recently closed in our area. It's a huge impact on us because we now have a lot of people coming in looking for hardwoods.
Yeah.
Because there is nobody locally anymore for hardwoods.
Right, and we look for hardwoods for flooring.
Mhm.
We look
For a
for
lot of
hardwoods for
Millwork,
cabinet,
millwork,
millwork.
trim.
We look for hardwoods for a ton of stuff.
sure.
Just sitting through
Yeah.
this CTE programs that we put on, honestly, they have a program with Weyerhaeuser who is doing those things, planting the trees back.
Yeah.
And managing those forests. They aren't around here so much, but they are doing that now, and we need to do it like that they are.
I can speak a little bit. So my company is based in northern Maine. And the part or division of our company is Huber Resources Corporation, which is actively managing, sustainably managing forests in around northern Maine, from Baxter State Park north. We manage for the Appalachian Mountain Club for folks who are looking to independent landowners, like the Huber family who owns a company, who want to see progressive and sustainable management of their land. One thing that we are very conscious of as Huber Resources is people who purchase land and then sell the carbon credits. So I would say one thing to be very cautious of is when someone is purchasing carbon credit to say that their company is carbon neutral, they are purchasing carbon credits from a timber stand that is not actively managed. So I would just say a pitfall looking forward is not allowed or figuring out a way that carbon credits cannot be sold and then the land never harvested, never actually actively managed. We are running into that in northern Maine quite a bit.
Just to bring this point home, it actually increases the carbon release from the forest if it's not managed.
If it's not,
Yes, proper forest management decreases carbon emissions.
Correct.
my cousin's the president of Wagner Timber, so I'm pretty clear on this.
Okay.
But Wagner Forester. Yeah, no. Any other questions? Anything else you want to share? Thank you.
We send an email CCing you, Bill, about possible language we're addressing the ability
Yes.
for CTE students
Thank
to
you,
be able to
Thomas.
go with their capacity. So
Yeah.
we'll look into that.
Because I think that if we can do a transition on that piece for this year, I think it would be really, this is why I asked. Yeah, it would be great.
These are some of the tweaks you could do now while
Well,
you're
depending
fixing the
on-
bus.
I wish Beth had stayed with us, Beth St. James, our legal counsel for
That's right.
education, because she would know what the rule was that, and what it would involve. Thank you all. This was just terrific. I think, I'll speak personally, I'm very engaged. I think the whole legislature's been very engaged and committed to the working lands, to forestry as an industry, to our forest products industry. I mean, it's as a backbone of our state economy, and we care enormously about it. So we're so grateful for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for partnering with me.
That vision that you have, we will certainly appreciate it. And it does dovetail very well as you're going into the future and working a little bit for today. I think everybody ends up as a winner.
No, agreed. And that's a good note to end on. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Thank you,